Hi, Grandma Abuela here. Today I'm going to talk about how to treat a baby. In case you're wondering, this is not a real baby. This is a doll. It used to be my youngest daughter's. I stole it from her years ago so that I could teach CPR classes, and this was my baby that I teach for some of the baby things. But now I use it for all sorts of things. And so today I really wanted to talk about how we treat a baby. I remember when my first little niece was born, and I wanted to hold her. And I was the youngest by 10 years, and then my little niece was born. And her mother said, "Okay, you can hold her." And she handed her to me very carefully. And she said, "Be careful, you support the neck and the head." And that was the first that I'd heard of that because I hadn't had any other experience with babies. I don't remember how old I was. I was probably only about 8. But I that was one of those things that I was glad that I learned. And of course, I taught that to my own children as my, as I had other babies and as they had nieces and nephews born. But I realized that not everybody has the experience of having nieces and nephews born. Maybe not everybody knows about some of the some of the things that we just take for granted that you would think people know about taking care of a newborn. So I want to talk about that for a minute. First of all, with a newborn, when you hold them, you really do have to put your head underneath your hand, sorry, not your head, your hand underneath their neck and their head like this. You really want to support them like this. If you're not supporting that neck, the muscles in the neck aren't strong enough to support the head, so the baby's head will wobble all over the place. So you have to support their little neck and their little head. Um, I always like to hold my babies like this. If I was going to change hands, like if someone handed me the baby and I was holding it like this, I'd reach my hand like this and I'd support her little head, and then I'd put her in my arm like this. And this was how I liked to hold the baby, was with one arm. Um, I would like to maybe hold her little hand. I like to play with her little feet. Babies like to have their butts patted. I don't know why. After you feed a baby, you need to burp that baby. There's a couple of different ways to do it. Again, you want to support the back of the head and the neck, and you can put them up against your shoulder like this or against your chest. And if you're doing this right, the baby will just kind of collapse into you, and then your chest and your shoulder is protecting that head. And then you can just sit there and you can pat the back like this. Um, you can spank them a little bit. Sometimes babies have a hard time burping. When that happens, something that I would do is I would rub their back like this. That seemed to kind of help. I'd rub their back and then I'd pat it some more and rub their back and pat it some more. Um, Maybe do a little jiggle and then a little bit more pats. But you want to be gentle. Now, another way that you can burp a baby, and I'm going to pretend this is a real baby, so I'm going to support her head, is I would take the baby. I need to adjust my camera a little bit here so that you can see my lap. I would take the baby and I would place my fingers here in front of the chest, and then I'd have my hand like this in front, and I'd let her lean forward. So now my fingers are supporting the chin and the neck like this. I'm not choking her, I promise. I'm just supporting her. And then this is kind of a big baby to do this. This is something you want to do with a newborn more. And then you kind of lean her forward, and then you can pat her like that. And sometimes that helps get those bubbles up. Another thing that you can do is you can lay the baby down on your lap like this. I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me try to adjust that camera a little better. You can lay the baby down on your lap, and you can circle her legs like that. Do some of this. Sometimes that'll help. And then, again, supporting the head. Pick her back up. Let me adjust the camera again. Pick her back up, put her against your chest, and then pat her some more. Those are things that can help get that bubble out. Now, sometimes babies are colicky. What that means is that they have a little bit of gas, they might have a bubble in there, and it hurts their stomach. Um, and if you think about it, I mean, when we have gas as adults, it hurts our stomachs, but for babies, it's really, really painful. Now, there are little drops that you can give them to help alleviate that sometimes, but sometimes um, nothing works. They are just going to cry, and they're crying because they hurt. Don't get frustrated with the baby. Don't yell at them. That's not going to help. Um, just continue to hold them and love them and sing to them and talk to them. let them know that you're there. I remember one time my oldest daughter, she was colicky. She was crying and crying and crying. I had done everything. I tried burping her. I tried feeding her. I tried wrapping her in a blanket. I tried taking the blanket off. I tried singing to her, playing with her, changing her diaper. I had tried absolutely everything, and she just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, and nothing was working. And finally, I had reached a point where I didn't know what else to do. And I was starting to get a little bit frustrated, not angry, frustrated, just frustrated because I hated to see her unhappy. So I remember we had a large bed. It was a king size bed. And I remember laying her down in the middle of the bed, and I laid down next to her, and I opened up a book and I started reading the book. Reading the book helped me calm down. That's one of the things that I do to calm down. Some people like to listen to music, but for me it was reading a book. And I had her there next to me, and I could just kind of pat her belly every now and then. So she knew that I still loved her. And that's what I did. I've heard people say if you start to get too frustrated with the baby, put the baby in her crib where she'll be safe and walk away for a couple of minutes and just try to take a little bit of a break so that you don't hurt the baby, whatever it is that you need to do. Um, there are people who actually hurt these little sweet innocent children because they get frustrated. And they get frustrated because they don't know what to do. They want that baby's crying to stop. Please remember, the baby does not have another way to talk. Crying is the only way it can express itself. And if the baby's hurting and you can't alleviate that pain, the baby's going to cry until finally, the pain manages to go away. I have found that with a colicky baby, that if I change their position and I'm, moving them around a little bit, that helps. So like maybe I'll hold them like this for a bit, and then I'll put them back up against my chest, and then like this, and spank them a little, and just jiggle them a little. One other thing that really works well with babies, and I don't know why this is something that my mom taught me. She said, take the baby outside. If it's cold, bundle it up first, of course. But she said, take the baby outside. She said that she never met a baby that didn't like to go outside. And so, unless it's too bitter cold, try taking the baby outside because that change might be all it takes to get the baby to quiet down. I know some people like to put their babies in a car seat and drive around a little, and that puts them to sleep. But whatever it is you need to do to help that baby. Um, the biggest thing, though, to remember, and that's what I started out with. I got off on this whole other tangent, but one of the big things I wanted to remind you of was to be sure that you're always holding that baby and supporting the baby's neck and head. When can you stop doing that? When the baby starts holding its head up. And I don't mean when the baby's on its stomach and it holds its head up just a little bit. You're still going to need to support that. There will come a time when you're setting the baby down on your lap and the baby will just like be looking around. You'll hold the baby here and the baby will raise her head a little bit and it'll be pretty wobbly, but you'll just know, you'll see that the baby's starting to get more control over her actions, and that's when you can, that it will just happen gradually and naturally that you'll find yourself supporting that neck and head less and less.